The stars were dying, one by one. Admiral Kira Voss stood on the bridge of the HCSF Valiant, watching the tactical display show another human colony going dark. Proxima Centauri, home to 12 billion souls, had just fallen silent. The red markers of Catharan swarm ships covered the screen like a disease spreading across flesh. "Admiral, we're receiving final transmissions from Proxima Station," her communications officer said, his voice tight. The young man's hands shook as he worked his console. Voss closed her eyes. She didn't need to hear it. She had heard a dozen such transmissions in the past month. Screams, prayers, defiance, turning to despair. The Catharan didn't take prisoners. They consumed everything in their path. "Acknowledged," she said quietly. "Mark Proxima Centauri as lost." The bridge fell silent, except for the hum of ship systems. 43 officers and crew, all human, all that remained of the once mighty Third Fleet. Around them, in the darkness of space, floated the wreckage of their companion ships. The battle had lasted 6 hours. The Catharan had barely slowed down. Ambassador Thelnax entered the bridge, his forearms folded in the Zentarii gesture of mourning. The tall, blue-skinned alien had been humanity's strongest ally since the war began. Now his own people were on the verge of surrender. "Admiral Voss," he said in perfect English. "The Council is meeting. They are discussing terms of surrender." Voss turned to him, her gray eyes hard. "Surrender? The Catharan don't accept surrender. They only accept extinction or assimilation into their hive mind." "I know," Thelnax replied. "But hope is a dying thing in the galaxy. 27 species have fallen. The coalition fleet is scattered. Earth itself will be under attack within weeks." Voss looked back at the tactical display. The Catharan swarm moved like locusts through charted space. Their bioships numbered in the thousands, each one capable of adapting to any weapon used against them. Shoot them with lasers, and their hulls evolved heat resistance. Use missiles, and they grew point defense organs. The hive mind learned from every battle, becoming stronger while the coalition grew weaker. "There must be something," Voss muttered. "Some weakness, some strategy we haven't tried." Her tactical officer, Commander James Park, shook his head. "We've tried everything, Admiral. Concentrated fire, hit-and-run tactics, biological weapons, even nuclear strikes. They adapt to everything within hours. We're fighting an enemy that learns faster than we can innovate." The communications console beeped suddenly. The officer straightened, confusion crossing his face. "Admiral, I'm picking up an encrypted transmission. It's strange. The encryption is human military, but it's an old code, 200 years old." Voss moved to the console. "That's impossible. Who would be using ancient encryption?" "I don't know, ma'am. But the signal is strong, coming from beyond the frontier nebula. Deep space, uncharted territory. Can you decrypt it?" The officer's fingers flew across his controls. "Working on it. The code is complex, but our computers should be able to." "Got it." A message appeared on the screen. Just a set of coordinates and a single word. "Valhalla." Voss felt her blood run cold. "Valhalla," she whispered. Thelnax looked at her curiously. "What is Valhalla? I am not familiar with this term." "Valhalla, Valhalla, Valhalla, Valhalla. I am not familiar with this term. It's from human mythology," Commander Park said. "The Hall of Dead Warriors, a place of honor and battle." But Voss was already moving to her command chair. "Set course for those coordinates. Maximum speed." "Admiral?" Park questioned. "That will take us away from Earth, away from the core systems. We're needed here." "No," Voss said firmly. "If those coordinates are what I think they are, then we're needed there." She turned to face her crew. 200 years ago, right after humanity made first contact with alien species, there were rumors. whispers in military intelligence circles. Some said that our leaders, seeing how dangerous the galaxy could be, started a secret project. They called it Project Valhalla. What kind of project? Thelnax asked. A doomsday fleet, Voss said. Ships built in secret, hidden away, designed to fight a war that might not come for centuries. I always thought it was just a story. A legend to make new recruits feel safer. But if that transmission is real, she looked at the coordinates again. They pointed to a region of space no human ship had explored. A void between spiral arms where stars were sparse and planets were few. It could be a trap, Park warned. The Catharan are intelligent. They could have intercepted old human codes. It could be, Voss agreed. But right now, it's the only hope we have. She activated the ship-wide intercom. All hands. This is the Admiral. We are changing course. I won't lie to you. I'm following a 200-year-old ghost story into unknown space while Earth burns. But I've seen what conventional warfare does against the swarm. We need something unconventional. We need a miracle. If we need a miracle, meine Filden, and a Filden. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. We're going to find Project Valhalla. If it exists, it might be our last chance. If it doesn't, then at least we'll die reaching for hope, rather than waiting for extinction. The ship's engines flared brighter as the Valiant changed course, leaving the protection of Coalition space behind. Behind them, the Catharan swarm continued its inexorable advance toward Earth. Voss stood at the viewport, watching the stars stream past. Somewhere, in the darkness ahead, lay either salvation or death. She thought about Earth, about the billions who would face the swarm alone while she chased legends. But sometimes, she thought, legends are all you have left. The Valiant jumped to faster than light speed, disappearing into the vast unknown. Aboard the ship, 43 humans and 1 Zentarii ambassador held their breath and hoped. The war seemed lost. Perhaps, in the void beyond civilization, they would find the key to winning it. The journey took 3 days. 3 days, while the Catharan swarm advanced closer to Earth. 3 days, while Admiral Voss questioned every decision that had brought her here, to the edge of known space, chasing ghosts and legends. The Valiant dropped out of faster-than-light speed at the coordinates. The bridge crew immediately began scanning. Report, Voss ordered. Commander Park studied his console, frowning. Admiral, sensors are picking up something massive. It's hidden in the shadow of a rogue planetoid. No star system. Just a planet wandering through the void. Life signs? Negative. But I'm reading power signatures. Faint, but definitely artificial. And, Admiral. Park looked up, his eyes wide. The structure is enormous, easily 100 kilometers across. Voss felt her heart begin to race. Take us in. Slowly. Keep shields at maximum. All. The Valiant moved forward, and gradually, the object came into view on the main screen. Even Voss, who had seen entire fleets and massive space stations, felt her breath catch. It was a shipyard. But not just any shipyard. It was a hidden fortress of construction, built into the rogue planet itself. Enormous docking bays stretched across the surface, each one large enough to hold a dozen standard battleships. And inside those bays, dark and silent, were ships. My God, Park whispered. They're huge. The ships were unlike anything in the current Coalition fleet. They were massive, angular things, all sharp edges and brutal efficiency. Each one was easily 5 times the size of the Valiant, which was already one of the larger ships in human service. Dreadnoughts, Voss said quietly. They actually built them. Ambassador Thelnax moved closer to the screen. I count 36 vessels. Admiral, if these ships are functional, they could change everything. If, Voss echoed. Take us to the main facility. There should be a control center. The Valiant docked at what appeared to be a central hub. Voss assembled a team, including Park, Thelnax, and a dozen security personnel. They moved through the airlock into the facility. Emergency lighting flickered on as they entered, responding to their presence. The air was stale but breathable, recycled by automatic systems that had run for 2 centuries. Dust covered everything. They found the control center deep in the heart of the facility. Computer terminals lined the walls, all dormant. In the center of the room stood a holographic projector, and beside it, a sealed container. Voss approached the container carefully. It bore the seal of the old Earth Defense Force, the military organization that had existed before the coalition was formed. She opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a data chip and a handwritten letter. The paper was old, yellowed with age, but the words were clear. Voss read them aloud. To whoever finds this message, if you are reading this, then humanity faces extinction. We built this fleet in secret, using resources diverted from hundreds of colonies over 50 years. We did it because we understood a simple truth. The galaxy is dangerous, and humanity must be prepared to fight for its survival. These ships represent our best technology, our greatest weapons. They are automated, waiting for the right crew. The activation codes are on this chip. Use them wisely. Use them to save our species. Signed, Fleet Admiral Chen Wei. Earth Defense Force. Year 2647. 200 years ago, Park said. They knew. They saw what could happen, and prepared for it. Voss inserted the chip into the main console. The systems came to life with a deep hum. Lights blazed across the control center. The holographic projector activated, showing a rotating image of the shipyard and its contents. A synthetic voice spoke. Welcome, Admiral. Project Valhalla has been awaiting activation. Please input authorization codes. Voss used the codes from the chip. The hologram changed, showing detailed specifications of the ships. 36 Dreadnought-class warships, the voice continued. Each vessel is equipped with quantum fold armor, capable of adapting to enemy fire through real-time molecular restructuring. Primary weapons are singularity cannons, which generate micro-black holes to tear through enemy hulls. Secondary weapons include plasma batteries and railgun arrays. Each ship has an AI-assisted tactical network, allowing the fleet to operate as a single coordinated unit. Voss felt hope surge through her for the first time in weeks. What's their status? All vessels are 93% complete. Primary construction finished 150 years ago. Remaining work includes installation of main power cores and crew quarters. Ships have been maintained by automated systems. The hope began to fade. How long to complete them? Estimated time with current resources. 14 months. We don't have 14 months, Park said grimly. Earth will fall in weeks. Voss studied the hologram, her mind racing. What if we cannibalize our current ships? The Valiant and every vessel we can call in. Use their power cores, their equipment, their materials. The AI processed the question. That would reduce completion time to approximately 48 hours. However, you would lose your existing fleet. We're going to lose everything if we don't act, Voss said. She activated her communication system. This is Admiral Voss to all human vessels in range. I need you to trust me. Converge on these coordinates immediately. Bring every ship you have, military or civilian. We're about to build something that will win this war. Over the next 6 hours, ships began to arrive. Destroyers, cruisers, frigates, even cargo haulers. The scattered remnants of humanity's fleet. Drawn by Voss's call, she explained the situation to each captain as they arrived. Some argued. Some thought she was insane. But when they saw the dreadnoughts, when they understood what was possible, they agreed. The work began immediately. Engineering teams moved between ships, stripping out power cores, weapons systems, life support modules. It was desperate, brutal work. They were literally tearing apart their fleet to build a new one. Voss watched from the control center as the first power core was installed in a Dreadnought. The massive ship's lights flickered on, and its engines began to hum with power. "One down," Park said. 35 to go. Ambassador Thelnax stood beside Voss, his expression thoughtful. "You are gambling everything on this, Admiral. If it fails, humanity will have no ships left. No defense at all." "I know," Voss replied. "But we were losing with what we had. At least this gives us a chance." She looked at the Zentarii ambassador. "What would your people do?" Thelnax was silent for a moment. Then he smiled, showing his pointed teeth. "My people would call you mad. But I have learned something about humans in this war. You do your best work when you are desperate. You refuse to accept defeat, even when logic says you should. It is both your greatest strength and your greatest flaw." "Let's hope it's a strength today," Voss said. The work continued around the clock. 43 hours after they had begun, the final power core was installed. The Dreadnought fleet was complete. While Admiral Voss and her crew worked desperately in the hidden shipyard, Earth faced its darkest hour. General Marcus Chen stood in the command center of Earth Defense Station 1, watching the tactical display with grim determination. The Catharan swarm had arrived in the Sol system 6 hours ago. What followed was a massacre. Luna Base, humanity's oldest off-world settlement, had fallen within the first hour. 3 million people lived there. Now it was silent, covered in the writhing biomass of Catharan ground forces. Mars came next. The red planet's domed cities went dark one by one as the swarm descended. Chen was a veteran of 40 years of service. He had fought in border conflicts, pirate raids, and the early battles of this war. He had seen death before. But nothing compared to this. Nothing compared to watching humanity's birthplace being torn apart. "Sir, orbital platform Delta 7 is reporting critical damage," his tactical officer reported. "They're requesting permission to evacuate." "Denied," Chen said harshly. "Every platform that falls brings the enemy closer to Earth's surface. They hold their positions." The officer looked like he wanted to argue but simply nodded. The defense platforms were massive structures, bristling with weapons and shielding. Normally, they could hold off any attack. But the Catharan didn't attack normally. They came in waves of thousands, bioships crashing into platforms like living missiles. Each wave died, but each wave also learned. By the 10th wave, the Catharan had adapted to the platform's weapons. Delta 7 exploded in a bloom of fire. Chen watched 5,000 lives vanish in an instant. "Admiral Voss, where are you?" he muttered under his breath. Chen had received Voss's last transmission before she disappeared into uncharted space. She had spoken of a secret fleet, of a desperate gamble. At the time, he had thought she was abandoning them. Now, watching Earth die, he understood. Conventional warfare couldn't win this. They needed something impossible. "Sir, the swarm is beginning orbital bombardment of Earth," another officer said, his voice breaking. "They're targeting major population centers." Chen closed his eyes briefly. 8 billion people lived on Earth. Most were already in underground shelters, but those shelters would only protect them for so long. Once the swarm landed ground forces, it would be over. "Deploy all remaining fighter squadrons," Chen ordered. "Every ship we have. I don't care if they're barely spaceworthy. Get them up there. We need to buy time." The space around Earth filled with human fighters. Thousands of small, desperate ships flinging themselves at the swarm. It was like throwing stones at an avalanche. But they fought anyway, because that's what humans did. They fought. Chen watched young pilots, some barely 20 years old, fly their fighters into Catharan bioships in suicide runs. He watched cargo haulers, armed with nothing but improvised weapons, ram enemy vessels. He watched the defense platforms, their crews knowing they were doomed, continue firing until their ammunition was gone and their shields failed. Hour after hour, the battle raged. Earth's forces fought with everything they had, and slowly, inevitably, they lost. By hour 15, half the orbital platforms were destroyed. By hour 23, the Catharan began landing forces on the surface. Bioships descended through the atmosphere like falling meteors, disgorging their troops across every continent. Chen coordinated the ground defense from his command center. Military units and armed civilians fought the Catharan in the streets of cities, in the forests, in the deserts. Everywhere humans existed, they resisted. But the Catharan were too many, too adaptive, too relentless. Ambassador Thelnax's people, the Zentarii, sent a final transmission. Their homeworld, 5 light-years away, had just fallen to another swarm fleet. The message was simple. We stand with humanity. We will remember that we tried. Then their signal went dark. Chen stood at the window of his command center, looking down at Earth. He could see the fires from orbit now. Entire cities burning. The Catharan biomass spreading like a cancer across the planet's surface. Sir, his communications officer said quietly. We're receiving a transmission from Admiral Voss. Chen spun around. Put it through. Voss's face appeared on the screen. She looked exhausted but determined. Behind her, Chen could see the bridge of an unfamiliar ship. General Chen, Voss said, I need you to hold for 6 more hours. Can you do that? 6 hours? Chen looked at the tactical display. At the current rate of Catharan advancement, Earth's command structure would collapse in 3 hours. Admiral, I don't know if we have 6 hours. You have to find them, Voss said urgently. I'm bringing help, but I need time to get there. What kind of help? The kind that will end this war. Voss's eyes were fierce. Trust me, Marcus. Hold for 6 hours. That's all I ask. Chen looked around his command center at his exhausted staff. At the tactical display showing defeat on every front. At Earth, his home, dying below him. We'll hold, he said finally. 6 hours. But Admiral, whatever you're bringing, it better be good. It is, Voss promised. It's everything we've dreamed of and everything the enemy fears. 6 hours, Marcus. Just hold. The transmission ended. Chen turned to his staff. They were all watching him, waiting for orders, waiting for hope. You heard the Admiral, Chen said, his voice gaining strength. We hold for 6 hours. I don't care what it takes. Pull back all forces to defensive positions around major cities. Activate every weapon we have in reserve. Wake up every soldier who can hold a gun. We are going to show these invaders what humans do when they're backed into a corner. He activated the planetary broadcast system. This is General Marcus Chen to all Earth forces. I know you're tired. I know you're scared. I know it looks like we're going to lose. But I'm telling you now, hold for 6 more hours. Admiral Voss is coming with reinforcements. In 6 hours, we're going to turn this war around. So dig in. Fight hard. And don't you dare die before you see what's coming. The response was immediate. Across Earth, human forces rallied. They had been fighting for survival. Now, they were fighting for time. The Catharan pressed harder, sensing final victory. They poured more troops onto the planet. The biomass spread faster. The hive mind, confident in its triumph, committed its reserves. Chen coordinated defense after defense. He pulled back forces just before they were overrun, sacrificing territory to save lives. He ordered strategic buildings destroyed to deny them to the enemy. He did everything a desperate commander could do. 3 hours passed, 4, 5. The command center itself came under attack. Catharan ground forces reached the base of Earth Defense Station 1. Chen armed himself with a rifle. Around him, his staff did the same. If they were going to die, they would die fighting. 5 hours and 53 minutes since Admiral Voss's call, his tactical officer reported. 7 minutes to go. Then we hold for 7 minutes, Chen said. The Catharan breached the lower levels of the station. Chen could hear weapons fire echoing through the corridors. His security teams were fighting floor by floor, buying seconds with their lives. The command center doors shook under impact. The enemy was right outside. Chen raised his rifle, aiming at the door. "Sir," his communications officer suddenly shouted. "Multiple quantum signatures detected. They're big. They're right on top of us. There." The tactical display exploded with new contacts. 36 massive signatures, appearing out of faster-than-light travel directly above Earth. Through the window, Chen saw them. Ships. Enormous ships. They looked like flying fortresses, all angles and armor, and bristling weapons. And they were opening fire. The Dreadnought fleet emerged from quantum space like thunder made solid. Admiral Voss stood on the bridge of the HDSF Indomitable, the flagship of humanity's hidden armada. Around her, 35 sister ships took up formation with mechanical precision. Each Dreadnought was a mountain of metal and firepower, 5 times larger than any ship in the Coalition fleet. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Commander Park said from the tactical station. "AI tactical network is online and synchronized." Voss looked at the tactical display. Earth was below them, covered in Catharan bioships like a swarm of insects on a corpse. The numbers were overwhelming. Thousands of enemy vessels, tens of thousands of ground troops. By all conventional military analysis, 36 ships against thousands should be suicide. But these were not conventional ships. "Target the Catharan fleet," Voss ordered. "Full spread. Show them what human ingenuity looks like." The Dreadnoughts opened fire. The singularity cannons were the product of 200 years of theoretical research. Each shot generated a microscopic black hole that existed for only a fraction of a second. But in that fraction of a second, it tore through matter like a knife through paper. The first volley destroyed 200 Catharan bioships instantly. They simply ceased to exist, pulled into the micro-singularities, and crushed out of existence. No time to adapt. No time to evolve. Just instant, absolute destruction. The Catharan swarm, for the first time in the war, hesitated. "Secondary batteries, open fire," Voss commanded. Plasma cannons and rail guns added their fury to the barrage. The Dreadnoughts moved through the enemy fleet like reapers through wheat. Every shot was perfectly placed, coordinated by the AI tactical network. The 36 ships fought as one organism, anticipating each other's movements, covering each other's weaknesses. A Catharan bioship managed to fire on the Indomitable. The organic weapon, designed to melt through standard ship armor, struck the quantum fold plating. The armor rippled, its molecules restructuring in real time to dissipate the energy. The shot that should have crippled the ship left only a scorch mark. "Quantum armor holding at 98%, Park reported. "The enemy weapons are ineffective." Voss allowed herself a grim smile. The Catharan adapted to weapons by evolving their biology. But you couldn't evolve faster than molecular reconstruction. The quantum fold armor changed its properties faster than the enemy could adjust. From Earth's surface, General Chen watched the sky transform into a light show of destruction. The Catharan fleet that had seemed invincible was being torn apart by the newcomers. "What are those ships?" his tactical officer asked in awe. "Those," Chen said with fierce pride, "are Dreadnoughts. Those are the hammers of humanity." The Indomitable led the fleet deeper into the enemy formation. A massive Catharan command ship, 3 kilometers long, moved to intercept. It fired with dozens of bioweapons simultaneously, trying to overwhelm the Dreadnought's defenses. The quantum armor adapted to each impact, spreading the damage across its entire surface. The ship barely shook. "Return fire," Voss said calmly. Singularity cannon, full power. The main gun fired. Space itself seemed to tear open. The Catharan command ship was pulled into the micro-black hole, imploding in on itself. 3 kilometers of organic warship compressed into a point smaller than an atom in less than a second. Target destroyed, Park reported. He sounded almost shocked at the weapon's efficiency. High Coordinator Zarketh, the mind behind the Catharan swarm, watched through the eyes of 1,000 bioships. For the first time in its long existence, it felt something new. Not fear, exactly. The hive mind didn't experience emotions the way individual species did. But something close to uncertainty. These new human ships were wrong. They defied the natural order of adaptation and evolution. The hive mind threw more ships at them, trying to find a weakness, trying to learn. But there was no time to learn. The dreadnoughts killed too quickly, too efficiently. Zarketh made a decision. It committed its reserves. Every ship it had been holding back for the final conquest of Earth's surface launched into space. The Catharan numbers swelled from thousands to tens of thousands. Admiral, enemy reinforcements jumping in, Park warned. We're now outnumbered 300 to 1. Voss studied the display. Yes, they were outnumbered. But numbers didn't matter. When you had this much firepower, all ships, Delta formation, concentrate fire on their carrier organisms, cut off their reinforcement capability. The Dreadnought fleet shifted formation with perfect coordination. They identified the massive bioships that spawned smaller fighters and focused their fire. Within minutes, the Catharan reinforcement capacity was crippled, but the swarm kept coming. Individual bioships crashed into the dreadnoughts, trying to breach their hulls through sheer mass. Smaller organisms attached themselves to the ships, trying to eat through the armor. Shields at 70%, Park reported. HDSF defiant. Reports minor hull breach. HDSF retribution is being swarmed by fighter organisms. Activate point defense systems, Voss ordered. All ships, increase power to shields. We push through. The battle raged for hours. The space around Earth became a graveyard of destroyed ships. Catharan biomatter floated among the wreckage, still twitching with residual life. The dreadnoughts fought with mechanical precision, never tiring, never hesitating. 3 dreadnoughts were destroyed. The HDSF Valorous took critical damage when a Catharan capital ship rammed it at full speed. The ship's quantum core destabilized, and it exploded in a burst of light that vaporized everything within a kilometer. The HDSF Thunder and HDSF Vengeance were swarmed by so many smaller organisms that their point defenses were overwhelmed. They fought until their ammunition was exhausted, then used their own mass as weapons, ramming into enemy formations before their reactors overloaded. Voss felt each loss like a knife to the heart. Those were her ships, her crews. But she couldn't stop. Couldn't mourn. Not yet. Status report, she demanded. Enemy fleet strength down to 30% of original numbers, Park reported. But we've lost 3 ships. 5 more have critical damage. Admiral, if they keep this up, they'll overwhelm us through attrition. Voss looked at the tactical display. The Catharan were learning. Not fast enough to adapt to their weapons, but learning tactics. They were concentrating their forces, trying to destroy the dreadnoughts, one at a time. We need to break their coordination, Voss said. Find their command nexus. There must be a central control ship. The AI tactical network processed billions of data points from the battle. It identified patterns in enemy movement, traced communication signals, analyzed decision-making speed. There, highlighting a position on the display. Bioship approximately 8 kilometers in length, positioned at the edge of their formation. It's heavily defended, but the AI calculates it's the primary command node. Then we kill it, Voss said. All ships converge on target coordinates, full speed. We're going to punch through their lines and destroy their brain. The dreadnought fleet surged forward as one. They fired continuously, clearing a path through the enemy. Catharan bioships threw themselves in the way, trying to block the advance. The dreadnoughts smashed through them. The HDSF Indomitable led the charge. Its singularity cannon fired again and again, each shot obliterating enemy vessels. Its quantum armor glowed white-hot from the constant impacts, but held. They broke through the defensive line and found themselves face-to-face with the command nexus. It was a monstrous thing, pulsing with organic life, covered in sensor organs and communication tendrils. High Coordinator Zarketh finally understood fear. "Fire everything," Voss ordered quietly. All 33 remaining dreadnoughts fired simultaneously. Singularity cannons, plasma batteries, railguns, missiles. Every weapon they had unleashed at once. The command nexus tried to defend itself. But there was no defense against that much concentrated firepower. It was torn apart, pulled into multiple micro-black holes, burned by plasma hot as stars, shredded by projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. When the light faded, nothing remained but scattered organic debris. Across the battlefield, the Catharan swarm faltered. Without the central coordination of the hive mind, the bioships became confused. They fired randomly, crashed into each other, lost cohesion. "Finish them," Voss said. The Dreadnought fleet swept through the disorganized enemy, destroying ships by the dozens. Within an hour, the space around Earth was clear. The Catharan swarm was broken. On Earth's surface, the ground forces suddenly stopped their coordinated assault. Individual Catharan creatures wandered aimlessly, cut off from the hive mind's direction. Human forces emerged from their defensive positions and began systematic cleanup operations. General Chen watched from his command center as the last Catharan bioship fled the system. He activated communications to the Indomitable. "Admiral Voss, this is General Chen. Earth is secure. The enemy is retreating. You did it." Voss's face appeared on screen. She looked exhausted, covered in sweat, but triumphant. "We're not done yet, General. This was just one fleet. The Catharan have more. But now, so do we." The victory at Earth changed everything. Word spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Humanity, which had been on the edge of extinction, had beaten back the Catharan swarm. Species that had been preparing to surrender suddenly found new courage. The coalition, which had been falling apart, began to reform. But Admiral Voss knew the truth. One victory didn't win a war. The Catharan still controlled dozens of systems. Their main fleets were still intact. Earth was safe, but the galaxy was still dying. She stood in the war room aboard the Indomitable, surrounded by holographic displays of enemy-held territory. Commander Park, Ambassador Thelnax, and General Chen joined her via quantum communication. "The Catharan have pulled back to fortified positions," Park reported. "They're regrouping. Intelligence suggests they're bringing in reinforcements from their home cluster. Then we don't give them time to regroup," Voss said firmly. "We go on the offensive. Every system they hold, we take back." Chen frowned. "Admiral, we only have 33 dreadnoughts left. They have entire fleets." 33 dreadnoughts is more than enough," Voss replied. "We've seen what these ships can do. One dreadnought is worth 100 conventional warships. Besides, we're not alone anymore." Thelnax nodded. "My people have heard of your victory. The Zentarii Council is mobilizing what remains of our fleet. We will fight beside you. Greater. Greater." Over the next week, other species joined. It wasn't much compared to their pre-war strength, but it was something. More importantly, it was unified. The liberation campaign began with the colony world of New Terra. The Catharan had conquered it 3 months ago, turning its cities into biomass farms. The Dreadnought fleet jumped in system with their coalition allies. The battle was brutal but short. The Catharan had learned some lessons from Earth. They tried to avoid concentrated engagements, using hit-and-run tactics. But the AI tactical network predicted their movements. Every time they tried to flank, the dreadnoughts were waiting. New Terra was liberated in 18 hours. The colonists emerged from underground shelters, many crying at the sight of human ships overhead once again. System after system, the pattern repeated. The Dreadnought fleet would jump in, engage the Catharan forces, and destroy them with overwhelming firepower. Coalition species followed behind, securing territory and rescuing survivors. 6 weeks into the campaign, they liberated Zentarii Prime. Ambassador Thelnax wept openly on the bridge of the Indomitable as his homeworld's orbital platforms, damaged but still standing, broadcast messages of gratitude. "Thank you," Thelnax said to Voss. "Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for saving my people." Voss gripped his shoulder. "We're in this together now, all of us." But with each victory, the cost grew. The HDSF Resolute was destroyed, defending a convoy of civilian ships. The HDSF Guardian sacrificed itself to hold a choke point, allowing the rest of the fleet to escape an ambush. The HDSF Eternal took critical damage and had to be abandoned. Its crew evacuated before the ship broke apart. By the time they reached the edge of Catharan space, only 27 dreadnoughts remained. Voss called a command meeting. The holographic conference room was filled with the faces of human officers, coalition commanders, and political leaders from a dozen species. "We've pushed the Catharan back to their home cluster," Voss began. "Intelligence has located their primary world, the source of the hive mind. If we destroy it, we end the war." A Korathi admiral spoke up. "Admiral Voss, attacking their homeworld is genocide. We should offer terms of surrender." "Terms?" Voss's voice was sharp. "What terms did they offer New Terra? What mercy did they show Luna Base? The Catharan don't accept surrender. They only understand strength. But we're not them," a human representative argued. "If we exterminate an entire species, what does that make us? A lever." The room erupted in argument. Some agreed with Voss. Others saw it as crossing a moral line. The debate raged for hours. Crossing, finally, General Chen spoke. "I was at Earth when it fell. I watched billions prepare to die. I watched young soldiers throw their lives away to buy minutes. The Catharan had us beaten, and they didn't stop. They didn't offer mercy. They were going to erase humanity from existence." He paused. "I'm not saying that makes genocide right. But I am saying that if we show mercy now, our children will be fighting this war again in 50 years. The Catharan must be stopped. Permanently." Number. Ambassador Thelnax added his voice. "In nature, there are predators and prey. The Catharan made themselves predators of all life. Now they face a greater predator. This is the law of survival." The vote was close. But in the end, the decision was made. The Dreadnought fleet would strike at Catharan Prime. The journey to the home cluster took 2 weeks. They knew the Catharan would be waiting. This would be their final stand. They weren't disappointed. When the fleet emerged at Catharan Prime, they found the entire might of the swarm waiting for them. Thousands of bioships filled the space around the planet. Massive defense platforms orbited in layers. The planet itself pulsed with organic life, a world transformed into a living fortress. "My God," Park whispered. "Admiral, the enemy numbers are off the scale. We're looking at 10,000 combat ships. Minimum." Voss stared at the display. This was it. The final battle. Win here, and the war was over. Lose, and humanity would be hunted to extinction. "All ships," she said calmly. "This is what we came for. This is what we trained for. We're going to punch through their defenses and destroy that planet. We're going to end this war today." She paused, then added, "It has been an honor serving with all of you." The Dreadnought fleet surged forward. Behind them came the coalition forces, hundreds of ships from dozens of species, all united in this final desperate assault. The Catharan swarm met them with everything they had. The space around Catharan Prime became a hellscape of fire and death. Ships exploded by the dozens. The quantum armor of the dreadnoughts glowed white-hot from continuous impacts. The HDSF Titan broke through the first defensive line, but was swarmed by fighter organisms. Its crew fought desperately, but eventually, the biomass ate through the hull. The ship exploded, taking hundreds of enemy craft with it. The HDSF Sovereign had its engines destroyed. Dead in space, it continued firing its weapons until a Catharan capital ship crashed into it. Both ships were destroyed in the collision. One by one, the dreadnoughts fell. But for every dreadnought destroyed, hundreds of Catharan ships died. The singularity cannons carved paths of destruction through the enemy. The quantum armor held against impossible odds. The Indomitable led the final push toward the planet. Only 12 dreadnoughts remained now, surrounded by the battered ships of the Coalition fleet. But they had broken through. They were in range. High Coordinator Zarketh, deep in the planetary nexus, finally understood it was going to die. The hive mind sent one final message, broadcast to every ship, every mind, in its collective. You have won, humans. But remember this. We came to your worlds because we needed to survive. You come to ours because you chose to. What does that make you? Voss heard the message. For a moment, doubt flickered in her mind. Then she thought of Earth burning, of Luna Base falling silent, of billions who died because the swarm gave them no choice. It makes us the survivors, she said quietly. Fire the singularity cannon. Planetary bombardment setting. The Indomitable's main gun charged to maximum power. This wasn't a micro black hole. This was something larger, something that would last longer, something that would tear a planet apart. Firing, Park said. The cannon discharged. Space itself tore open. A black hole formed. Not tiny, but massive, visible, hungry. It descended toward Catharan Prime. The planet tried to defend itself. Defensive weapons fired uselessly. Bioships threw themselves in the way, only to be consumed. Nothing could stop it. The black hole struck the planet's surface and began to feed. It pulled in rock, water, atmosphere, and the billions of Catharan organisms that made up the hive mind. The planet groaned, its crust cracking. Continents pulled apart. The remaining Catharan ships stopped fighting. Without the central coordination, without the hive mind to guide them, they became individual creatures, lost and confused. Voss watched as Catharan Prime died. It took 6 hours for the planet to completely collapse into the artificial black hole. When it was done, nothing remained but an accretion disk of debris. The war was over. 3 months later, Admiral Kira Voss stood on Earth in a ceremony attended by leaders from every coalition species. She was awarded medals, honors, the gratitude of billions, but she felt no joy. She had won the war, but at what cost? 3/4 of the Dreadnought fleet was destroyed. Millions had died. An entire species was extinct. Ambassador Thelnax found her alone after the ceremony. You saved us all, he said. But you do not feel like a hero, do you? Heroes don't commit genocide, Voss replied quietly. No. Thelnax agreed. But survivors do what they must. The Catharan would not have stopped. You know this. I know, Voss said. But knowing doesn't make it easier. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Thelnax spoke again. The galaxy will remember this war. They will remember that when pushed to the brink, humanity refused to surrender. They will remember the Dreadnought fleet. They will remember you. Voss looked up at the sky, where new dreadnoughts were being constructed. The Coalition had learned its lesson. They would never be caught unprepared again. Let them remember, she said. Let them remember that humanity fights hardest when we're backed into a corner. Let them remember that we don't start wars, but we sure as hell finish them. Not. She turned away from the sky and walked back toward the city. Behind her, the stars shone bright and peaceful. The war was over. Humanity had survived, and the galaxy would never forget the day the Dreadnought fleet emerged from the darkness and changed everything.